Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Hey Todd, how are you doing?
Good.
You guys are done with the tour and you're back. How was the experience?
Oh, it was a great experience. We played, I think, 10, 11, 12 countries,
Uh-huh.
something like that. We did, I believe it was 22 shows in 30 days,
Wow.
which included the commute from the United States to Europe and back and within Europe as well. So not a lot of downtime, that's for sure, but we had a lot of fun, and I think that show by show,
Mm-hmm.
we really proved that, the band is back and still has things to do. We're very excited.
That's awesome. Now, this tour must have been very important for you guys, in terms of you guys are rebranding, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a complete rebuilding of the brand and the
True.
name and the music, and trying to get, a lot of the fans back that dropped off the radar, and also um, a chance to really, I don't want to say pacify, because that's not really the right word I'm thinking of, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess satisfy in a good way,
Mm-hmm.
the fan base that has still stuck around.
True.
So it's definitely a rebuilding process, and we're very diligent and mindful of all of the things that go into what we feel is properly doing that. Rekindling those relationships that the
True.
band had with people in the business, and reaching out to the fans.
That's amazing. Now, fans have been an important part of Queensryche from day one. Earlier your fans were looking forward to your older material, and now they want both the older material as well as the new stuff. So, within a band, it must have been a great feeling, isn't it?
It's really a great feeling for me, especially because I'm for the first time seeing fans singing songs
Hmm.
that I was actually a part of writing,
Right.
or lyrics that I wrote. People are singing, and so to have that materialize into what it is now
Hmm.
is really a dream come true for an artist.
Right.
To be connecting with people in a certain way, and
Hmm.
certain songs resonate with people for different reasons. So it's definitely an awesome feeling and experience.
That's amazing. Now you got to tell me, what it's like to front one of your favorite band.
It's hard to put into words.
Hmm.
Queensryche was my one of my all-time favorite bands since I
Right.
was 14 or 15 years old,
Uh-huh.
and I'd only seen them two times.
Hmm.
One time was in around about 1991 or two, and then
Empire's tour.
the Empire tour,
Uh-huh.
and then I happened to see them perform the last show of their 30th anniversary tour in
Wow.
Clearwater, Florida.
Hmm.
Uh, so one concert was a sold out arena.
Hmm.
The other concert was a 70% full
Hmm.
hall. Um, and so, that kind of bummed me out to see one of my favorite bands playing to less than 1,000 people when I saw them, uh,
All right.
with Geoff on their 30th anniversary tour. But it was still a wonderful experience, and I got to meet all the guys
Hmm.
at their kind of meet and greet thing. I was able to do that,
Hmm.
and so to now be a part of the band is really an amazing experience. There are those moments where you have to pinch yourself and say, "Wow, I'm really associated with the band and the name," and
Absolutely.
so it's an incredible feeling. But I think the reaction from my friends
Hmm.
and some people is sometimes greater, than mine, because it's been a process, and I've developed a relationship with all of the guys in a very special way that, we're all friends, and so it's a different relationship that I have with them now.
True.
So that whole fan factor thing is gone, but it's still an amazing honor, and I try to honor it with the most respect that I can.
That's amazing. Now, like you mentioned, 90s tour, packed house, and 30th anniversary tour, 70%. Clearly shows the difference how fans have been accepting their music over the course of 2 decades.
Well, yeah, that's true. I have an interesting perspective that the others don't, in the sense that I was the fan on the other side of the stage looking at them play. They've always been doing it, so to them it's business as usual. But for me, the fan in me, if you want to call it that, looks at the band and says, wow, the band is deserving of so much more. The logical side of me certainly understands why Queensryche isn't selling out arenas. Well, nobody is, unless you're in the pop world, and a very select few bands world that can do that anymore. So the times have changed, and I don't fault Queensryche for that by any means. Right. At the same time, the flip side to that coin is several albums that took a musical direction that was not, in my opinion, indicative or congruent to the classic Queensryche sound.
True.
And so some of those bands, for example, Iron Maiden, they never deviated to such a degree, and that has worked for them, obviously.
Absolutely.
Other bands like Metallica, with the Black
Album, deviated, yeah.
They deviated, but
True.
they it was the right place at the right time for them, and they were able to grasp the masses with a commercial appeal, still, and being able to satisfy their creative interests as well. So it worked for them. For Queensryche, I don't think that it worked. And so now with the new record, as Michael told you, there are just the 5 guys in the band writing.
Absolutely.
And let's not forget James Barton, who also engineered the album and co-produced. Other than that, it was just all of us putting our ideas into the pot, and what you get is the first album with me on it, and it definitely has those elements that we all know Queensryche to have. And so things are changing, and the band as a whole feels like a band again. And so we're just really excited about the new songs that we're writing, and what the next record's going to be like. I mean, we feel that we have to certainly parallel or surpass the first record that I was on. Right. And there's a lot of other elements of songwriting that can be shown on this next record that were not on the first record with me. So there's definitely room for us, and we're excited about it, and we're eager to explore those areas.
That's amazing. Now, your new album is a masterpiece. Okay. Now, you guys have returned the focus to Queensryche's music, like we were discussing earlier, and also the focus to your highly loyal fans. It's more like a new chapter in your life. It's like Michael said, a rebirth of Queensryche.
Yeah, that's a very strong term that they use, and I don't take that term lightly by any means. When we did this record, it was, I hate to sound so cliche, but in many aspects, it pretty much wrote itself. It starts out with a melody or a riff, or the framework for a song, and each person puts their stamp on it and their take, and then it gets altered a little bit, and and everyone was very open-minded about the direction that it went. And in fact, when the album was finished, we didn't even know how long it was.
Oh.
And finally, someone said, "Hey, the record's, only 35 minutes long or whatever." And we were like, "Wow, really?" We just didn't know. But when we listened to it, it didn't necessarily feel like a short listen. It felt like a complete body of work. I think that Open Road was a perfect closing song
track, right?
And it just leaves you really kind of peaceful and calm, and that it's done. And the benefit to having a 35-minute album is that the supporters are left wanting more.
True.
And so that certainly fuels the eagerness to listen to the next record that we put out.
Absolutely.
So it's a win-win situation, I guess, but it was never planned that way by any means.
Well, that's great. Now, in general, we come across a progressive metal album, which is, rarely we come across such situations where an album is short. But let's not forget that some of the greatest metal albums are actually written very short. For example, Slayer's Rain in Blood.
One of my all-time favorites, Rain in Blood. Love that.
So it's all about good songwriting and focus. Now, when I listen to your album, it is the same. It lies in that zone where the album is short but makes an impact.
Well, that's like I said, it was certainly never planned, but for what it's worth, it seems to have positive effects from that, because, like I say, people keep saying, we're so anxious to hear what's next. There are albums that I own from bands that I love that I find myself listening to too long of an intro, or some filler, kind of material in there.
Right.
At the same time, as an artist, which we are wanting to do on this next record, is allowing some of the music to breathe a little more and let it grow in different areas a little more. So certainly I believe that the new record will definitely be longer, and it will have some songs that are perhaps even heavier than anything we had on this record.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, though that's something that I've really wanted to do, and the band certainly feels that way too, in some areas, but also allowing for the opportunity for something maybe with acoustic guitar, some more orchestral arrangements, and that's the beauty of what Queensryche was able to do, was never box themselves in. Some bands are phenomenal at what they do, but they're very niched into.
They restrict themselves to a particular zone.
I mean, Slayer can never do a ballad song with strings and anything like that.
Right.
It just wouldn't be Slayer, and so I that's fine with me. But you have other bands, thrash bands like Testament, that did do that.
Right.
And successfully, they were able to do it. Even Overkill with a song like Horoscope or something.
Right.
They were able to to not be just heavy thrash the whole way through.
Right.
So that's the benefit of being in a band like Queensryche, that can do those things, and it's completely acceptable, and actually it's wanted.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And now, Michael was really appreciating about your skills of playing different instruments. So in the record, I'm sure you guys must have, came up with ideas that went outside of your respective instruments. So was it more like, okay, you might have some parts in your mind, and then Wilton comes up and, implements those and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It would have been more like a team building approach.
Well, that's exactly how it went. For example, Parker wrote the song Where Dreams Go to Die, and he wrote the lyrics, he wrote the music, and then he shared it with me first. So I laid down the drums for it, and then I said, well, give me your lyrics, don't tell me how you want them phrased, and let me just do it on my own, and let's see what it comes up with, and then I want to hear what you had in mind. Now, Parker's influences are much more rooted in the punk and rockabilly style.
Okay.
So the way that you hear the phrasing of the lyrics on that particular song was kind of a one or two take thing. I just read them and sang them as I felt them and recorded the demo, and it's 99% how it went on the record.
Wow.
I sent the song over to Scott, and I said, hey, Scott, I hope you don't mind, but I put drums to the song that Parker wrote, and he and I have this song and shared it with everybody else as well. And Scotty said, dude, this is awesome, and I'm not offended in the least. Anything that keeps the songwriting moving forward is fine with me. So a lot of those drum, the marching da-da-da-dun,
yes,
that was all, that was what I did, and during the verse, that whole feel during the verse was kind of my drumming. But obviously Scott is so unique and amazing. Absolutely. And he was able to, hear some of those things that I did and then play it his way. But certainly I was able to lend some drumming ideas. I wrote on the demo of Open Road, I also said, hey, Michael, I hope you're not upset, but I did a guitar solo because the demo didn't have a solo in it when I got it. And so I played guitar and wrote a harmonized solo. Well, the ending part of the solo, he ended up keeping. Actually, I'm sorry, the beginning of the solo that I wrote became kind of the melody for the outro of A World Without, where it's on guitar.
Yes.
So he was able to take pieces from what my idea. Eddie wrote lyrics to Fallout, and he also wrote the lyrics to In This Light. And so, he was very instrumental in some vocal melodies. Michael, some of the melody for Redemption, a lot of that beginnings for the vocal melody was Michael. The chorus melody, at least the first half of that whole chorus of Redemption was Michael's. He gave me a guide track of something he heard, and I went with it, and then I altered some of it and went in my own direction. But everyone was able to do those things. Parker writing lyrics, me coming up with other ideas.
Right.
And so it was truly, like you said, a team effort and a band collaboration, and we all had fun doing it, and nobody felt offended. I never felt offended when somebody handed me lyrics or hey, try to sing it this way. Or I would call Eddie and say, hey, I'm kind of stumped on this melody for this song. Why don't you play around with it and track some ideas and send them to me and see what you think? And so, yeah, it was a lot of fun doing it that way, because it's no fun when people say, hey, you're just the singer, you just sing, or you're just the guitar player, you just do that. Everyone is completely open-minded, and it makes for a healthy, stress-free writing environment. I tell you what, I'm in the best band of guys that I could ever dream of being with. Most people would think, okay, these guys have been together for 30 plus years. You're the new singer. They're probably going to tell you, sing it this way, do this, do that.
Absolutely.
And it's completely the opposite 180 degree opposite from what most people would suspect.
Oh, wow, that's really amazing. Now, the kind of work you guys have done in the studio is amazing. But at the same time, when you guys come on stage, you especially have raised the bar when it comes to stage presence. I mean, Queensrÿche, the fans have greatly appreciated how big of a role you have played in making Queensrÿche a class act again on stage, especially when you came across certain ideas of taking cell phones from audience members and videotaping them.
Yeah, well, when I was in Crimson Glory, I had there was somebody up front that was taking photographs, and they were really crunched up against the front, so their view was very limited. And I thought, well, here, there's no way you can take the photographs that I know that you want. So I took the camera, or I asked them for the camera, and they gave it to me. And I took a photograph of them in the audience, which I think was cool for them. Hey, I was here at the concert. Then I walked around the stage, and I took pictures of the guys playing up close and personal, and I handed it back. And then I did it again, and I did it again. And it just became something that I really liked doing for them. It was a very small way of me thanking them. And then when I got into Queensryche, well, naturally, I just did the same thing.
Right.
As far as my stage presence goes, you know, I've been a drummer my whole life. And so I've always been, my drums.
Behind the drums.
Yeah, my drums were my blanket.
Right.
And my comfort zone. And to be exposed without the drums in front of you and cymbals and all that, I don't try to look a certain way. I don't try to move a certain way. Sometimes I'm criticized. All he does is headbang or whatever. But I don't want to do anything that's contrived. I don't want to do anything that is fake or too theatrical that I don't feel in my heart. So I'm just a metalhead, and I'm a headbanger. I'm the same guy that when I'm done, I want to go out front and be right there with the fans, headbanging and singing songs to the next band that's on stage. I'm the same guy that I was in that respect as when I was 16, 17, 18 years old. So, and the band is having a lot of fun.
True.
These guys are smiling on stage. They're excited to play again, which is the whole reason you play music in the first place.
Absolutely.
You know, I introduce the band every night. Everyone knows who they are, but it's certainly my way of making everyone feel and appear the team that we really are.
That's amazing. Now, the way like you came up with these ideas and you have implemented them is absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, there have been the cases with Geoff Tate throwing those cell phones back at them. So I mean, do you think is like he claims to be that it's what we call as rock and roll? Do you think one can define it that way?
Well, one can define anything the way they want, but in my opinion, it's disrespectful. It's not something I would ever do. In his defense, I was not at that concert. I don't know the context in which it took place. I have seen the video, and clearly it just appears as a fan filming happily. And, obviously he reacted in a way that did not resonate well with the fans. But for me, I've crowd surfed before, and I'm right in contact with the fans. And the only way I would ever be disrespectful, and I'm a human being too. I'm not perfect. I don't live in a bubble. If somebody threw something at me or somebody was blatantly disrespectful, I would probably challenge them and call them out on it, because that's just my nature.
Right.
But I'm also very, very mindful that my actions also have 4 other members attached to it.
Absolutely.
And so I have to, even when I don't want to sometimes, I have to take the high road, and I have to maintain a level of professionalism.
True.
In the best way that I know how, but at the same time, still being true to who I am as a person. And I just treat everyone with respect, so I just don't imagine someone, at least at our own concert, being an asshole to me, because they're the ones that came to see us perform. Now, if we were on a festival billing where you're playing with multiple bands and everyone there isn't a fan there just to see you, certainly that possibility exists. But to me, rock and roll is taking someone's camera and doing something cool with it, not throwing it out in the crowd. But again, I wasn't there, so I don't know the entire context or story, and I really could care less. But I always enjoy taking photographs for the fans and giving them something that they're not going to be able to get otherwise. And they seem very, there was a lot of those comparisons made with what Geoff did and what I do, and I didn't do anything to be the antithesis of what he did. I just do what I wanted to do with a fan's camera, and I've been doing that before I was ever in Queensryche, so it's not something I did after that incident.
Right. Have you heard the Frequency Unknown, Geoff Tate's album?
I've heard pieces of some songs. I think it would be a complete lie and utter bullshit for me to say that I haven't, because certainly, okay, there's another album out with this band's name on it. Let me see what it sounds like. I'm curious. And so I have listened to some songs, not in their entirety, although I did listen to the song Cold in its entirety, and I like that song. But overall, I just heard some samples and, maybe a 30, 45 seconds of something. If it piqued my interest, maybe I would listen more. If it didn't, well, then I would just, not listen to it anymore.
All right. Well, recently I just came across Geoff Tate's interview where he mentioned that this entire court case is all about money. Now, last night I had a chat with Michael, and when I asked him about this, his reply was, was really amazing for him. It was more like he said it's much more. It's much bigger than this. It's the entity of the name, everything encompassed with the fans.
Yeah.
It's what is in our hearts. What's your opinion on that? I mean, what do you feel about it?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I'm not in the lawsuit, and some may criticize that I even have an opinion at all. And I would say that I do have the right to an opinion because I've taken an extreme amount of criticism by what I would consider the minority,
right?
Simply because of the position that I'm in. People that don't know me, that are purists, well, then they might as well be upset that it's not Queensryche when DeGarmo left.
Right. I understand.
But we all know that that's not the case, and my opinion on the matter is, it's everyone in that band's life work.
Right.
It was Geoff's life work. It was Michael, Scott's, and Eddie's, and Chris DeGarmo's life work too. Right. So they all have merit in saying that. If you want to get down to what it really means, and for me, in my opinion, it boils down to how their corporation is structured, and they are the majority of the corporation. And so I believe that based on that fact, they had the right to do what they did. And sure, I'm sure it's gonna have to boil down to some type of compensation, however it works.
Right.
But clearly, it is in these guys' hearts, and they care about what the name means to the fans.
Right.
And for me to say that Geoff cares about what the name means to the fans, I don't think I could say that and believe it, because the album cover was not something that would be to Queensryche's standards. And putting out music that the fans didn't like repeatedly, and for whatever reason refusing to play the songs that a lot of the older material that we're playing.
Right.
From what I gather, that music is just not something that resonates with him anymore, and that's okay. He's a human being. He has every right to not like that style.
Mm-hmm.
But in all fairness, that is what Queensryche represents. So at some point, I think there comes a point where you say, you know, in the best interest of the brand and what it means to the fans, perhaps I should move on in one direction, and the band should continue in the path that is best for the brand. But again, that's not my 30-year career. So I'm just an outsider with an opinion that really doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
But for Scott and Michael and Eddie, certainly it is much more than just a dollar amount in an exchange. There's so much. It means so much more to these guys, and we're working so hard in that effort to really preserve and reestablish
the legacy
of the band. I mean, it's not rocket science.
Indeed. Now, fans have been divided to some extent, and since they have heard both the records, record A and record B, I feel fans have actually realized that you guys have the energy and they know you're doing the right thing.
Well, that's a nice thing for you to say, and I, for what it's worth, I concur. I mean, the album sales are one indication.
Mm-hmm.
We've sold over 50,000 worldwide, which by today's standards is quite respectable.
Absolutely.
Especially for the genre. So yeah, the majority of the fans, I feel, are supporting what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And also the sound of our record is a testament that, as Michael puts it so well, those guys are the proven assets. They were the songwriters of those songs. And I think that's just a clear indication that Queensryche is a sound and it's not one person.
Right.
You know, Geoff clearly was the voice of Queensryche, and his name is probably fairly synonymous with the name. That his name on its own, people know who he is.
True.
But his voice isn't Queensryche, just as my voice is not Queensryche. Queensryche is Scott, Michael, Eddie. Parker and now me. It's a collective thing.
Right. Amazing. Now, have you do you have any idea about the metal scene in India?
I'm sad to say that I do not. But I do know. I've seen footage of Iron Maiden playing there.
Uh-huh.
And the attendance that you guys get at your heavy metal concerts are out of control.
Absolutely. Any plans of heading to India soon, maybe for the next record?
At this point, nothing has been booked for India, but it is an honest thing for me to say that we are working with different promoters all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
For India, for Central and South America, for different Asian countries,
mm-hmm.
Australia. There's all different places that we really want to go and play. It's just a matter of the business end of it, negotiating and logistics and timing and that sort of thing. But we would certainly love to play for the audiences there.
Wow, amazing. Well, Todd, thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.
You have anything to say to our Indian fans? The space is all yours.
Well, I would just like to say thank you so much for embracing me as the new singer.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for allowing this legendary band to grow even further. And everyone in Queensryche would say thank you for your support. And we're really looking forward to the next album, and we hope that everyone will get a copy of that and show their support. And hopefully we can come to India and play for everyone there. And just the overall thank you. We're very thankful. We're very receptive to the fans and supporters and everyone that keeps this machine moving. And without those supporters, certainly we couldn't do it the way that we're doing it. And so we are truly thankful.